2006 to...
But now she's serving Mr. Museveni.
From 2011, she has been on the UPC ticket. She has represented UPC in Oyam South. This is her second term in Oyam South. Before that, she was in Apache District. She's serving the government of Uganda. There's a distinction.
Being appointed by the President Museveni.
Being appointed by President Museveni, you still have the ministries, you still have a government, and this government was there before Museveni and will be there after Museveni.
Mr. Akena, would you accept a ministerial appointment by the President?
I have not accepted.
Would
I am
you?
a backbencher. I have been a backbencher on UPC ticket. I can have interactions. I can try to see how best we can solve some of the issues. But I need to take you back to where...
Let's first finish this. Would you accept an appointment?
I need to take you back. I said I'm not accepted.
I'm talking about...
If I wanted an appointment, or maybe I would have lobbied, but that's not the issue. The big issue which we must be dealing with is how we're going to move Uganda forward.
Is it okay for your wife to serve as a minister in Mr. Museveni's government?
We discussed it as a party. We discussed it as an executive, and we approved that they can go ahead and take up the appointment. This was after the 2016 elections. It was brought forward, we discussed it, and it was approved.
If President Museveni appointed you today in the cabinet, what would be your take?
Today, that sort of thing is not happening. We're going into a general election. And a general
election... He has the powers to do that.
I'm telling you, we're going into a general election. And in the general election, we're pushing particular points. We're putting particular issues of where we want to see Uganda going forward. And it is unfortunate that we want to reduce issues of Museveni as if Museveni is omnipotent. Yes, he's heading a government which has been there for quite a long period of time. But what we're dealing with, the questions which we have to deal with, are questions of the future of Uganda. If you go into an election and your focus is only on Museveni, you may miss the big picture.
Isn't he the target?
It's a target for some people. My target is for how do we going to get Uganda to move.
If
we're going to move together with all players, it is a different question. But Uganda has to move in a direction whereby we're going to be able to capture and bring together all the energies of the country.
Don't you find his overstay in power an issue to work on?
It is an issue, but it's an issue for election. It's an issue which you must sort out in election. But if it is your sole focus, you're going to lose the big picture. Uganda is bigger than Museveni.
Isn't he shielding? Isn't he covering the big picture we are looking at? Isn't he overshadowing all the opportunities people would be getting?
Now that is where you have narrowed your vision. If that is your sole focus, I wish you luck. Because if your only focus is to deal with the question of Museveni, you are going to miss out on all of these other aspects which come forward during the general election.
Let's learn about the problems of Uganda, Mr. Akena, from you. Museveni is not the problem.
No.
What are the problems affecting us as a nation?
There are many problems affecting us. One of the issues which is coming to the core now, which I see a lot of agitation coming about, is the jobs opportunities, employment opportunities for the young people are not matching the people who are coming out of institution or whatever. There's not enough to absorb them into and also to channel their interest. There is a mismatch, as far as I can see, between the rural economy and the urban setup, and also the overall development. We are not developing a way which will be sustainable. Those are key questions which need to be addressed. We have had as UPC programs which have been tested, which helped raise the standard of rural economy, and is centered largely around the cooperatives. I'm sure if you speak to people of the older generation, they'll tell you how the cooperatives helped alleviate poverty in very many homes. Those are elements which I would want to see as we come to the general election, those matters discussed and sorted out. We need to have what I'd call a manpower development policy, in that where we're taking people into training, we are projecting the sort of skills and knowledge which is required for a modern economy, such that those who are going into high institutions of learning now what are the projections of what we need in 5 years to be competitive on a global scale. Those are issues which we must be able to look at dispassionately, despite the politics, despite whatever angers or whatever history you have. If you get caught in the history and you get caught in a fight, you may fail to see that what I keep mentioning, look at the bigger picture. We have to address those issues. And there's no country which I have lived in, and I've lived in many places, being in exile and going all over the place, which is as blessed as Uganda as far as natural resources is concerned. Uganda has a potential to really influence the sub-region and beyond on many aspects, and aspects like especially food security. In the region, we should be in the forefront. We should be way ahead. So the ideas which we need to put on the table, the ideas which we need to discuss soberly. But you're not going to have that conversation if the whole issue is that you're pointing out that so-and-so is the wrong person. Jimmy Akena is the one who's wrong. Jimmy Akena has sold whatever. Let's look at the key issues which we must address as a country. That is what an election gives us an opportunity to have that conversation, to have that reset, and to be able to have some of those things brought forward. So that is why often you have presidential debates to try and bring up these issues. But even at whatever level, as a political party, in an election period, you're putting forward these ideas. You are either trying, you want to be the one to implement. Now, even if you cannot be the one to implement, you must be trying to influence the policies which are going to take place. And that's what's going to happen in this election. After the election, you're not, my own thinking, you're not going to wish away any political entity. Right? After the 2016 election, 2021 election, NRM is going to exist. Right? FDC is going to exist. UPC is going to exist. DP is going to exist. ANT is going to exist. NUP is going to exist. And other various political whatever. The exact proportions are going to be determined by the election.
I don't think it's about existing. It's about succeeding and being successful in what they're doing, because there might be a party or in the political spectrum. It's not about existing. It's about delivering, isn't it?
Now, in the election, you're going to have a mandate whether you have been able to convince
the electorate
that you're the right person to deliver on the vision which you have put forward. And at the end of the day, there will have to be some level of a shared vision which will guide us.
Sharing the vision, would you sit in the same room with the different political heads on the opposition to forge ways through which you confront a single presidential candidate against the president, say, of Museveni? Now,
as a student of maths, you need to be in a position to garner 50 plus 1.
Okay.
If you don't have 50 plus 1, whatever formulation you do, it will not work. Whatever formulation. If it's less than 50 plus 1, it will not work. The formulation must be that what you bring together is more than 50%.
Okay.
In the past, what we have had together as opposition has not mounted to 50%.
Okay.
And if it did, there'll be a rerun. If nobody gets the 50 plus 1, but you're able to get enough which denies a single candidate 50 plus 1, there'll be a rerun of the top 2 candidates. So, by the constitutional mechanism, that issue is actually solved. The area where we run into difficulty is fielding multiple candidates at like a parliamentary level. Where you field multiple candidates at parliamentary level, you reduce your numbers. And hence you have a supermajority in parliament. Now, in parliament, one of the big issues which we dealt with was the age limit. Where at the time of where that age limit was brought, opposition needed 1/3 to block it. We didn't have the 1/3. All the opposition put together did not make 1/3.
Don't you think it's a wake-up call for you guys to start working together? Imagine Lango under UPC, Central under DP, National
You raise that issue. You raise
the other parties.
You raise the issue at presidential. Presidential, in some ways, it is easier, but it doesn't solve the problem. Now, and the issue at parliamentary is where the difficulty comes about. And to have that conversation and to really be able to say that how do you come up with a formula that has eluded, despite the best interests. I was involved when it was, okay, I can say, when it was IPFC, I was in the background.
In 96.
Yes. IPC.
In 2006, in the run-up to, yes, thereabout, yes.
It was basically after the elections.
Yes.
Right? And when TDA came, what I saw of the formula, I saw this formula could not work.
You are preempting my question that was coming up. People say that Uganda People's Congress is not easy to work with the opposition because in all those formulations, UPC has been evidently silent and not supportive of the forces of change to unite, to change. TDA.
IPFC?
IPFC was 96.
Yes.
Paul Kaunga Semogerere.
And then UPC didn't support?
That was under your dad's presidency.
Yes.
Even when he was in exile. They are talking about UPC under your leadership.
No, I'm talking about these formula. Formula, again, it does not matter who is leading at that time.
But the leader is very important. The vision of the leader.
If the formula is workable, right, it can work. Where it is limited. Now, in the issue of IPFC, there were concerns which my late father raised. And was proved to be correct with time. That the issues which he raised, which were not able to be addressed, proved his position to be correct. Now, as we moved along, we've had these different formulas, and if I feel personally that this formula is not working, why should I pretend or try to deceive people that this formula is actually going to work?
As we stand in the run-up to the 2021 polls, is the environment ripe for the opposition to unite against Mr. Museveni? Could you unite? Is the environment sobering up enough?
I have had interactions with my brother Mao. He had come up with what he was calling a special purpose vehicle. It has seems to have fallen on the wayside. So at this moment, there does not look any promising alignment on that basis.
You cannot get united?
No, I'm saying that...
Would you champion that, Mr. Akena? You talk to your brothers in the opposition. You talk to Chagulanyi. You talk to Nobati Mao. You talk to Asmani Basalidwa. You talk to Mugisha Muntu. You talk to whoever leads a political party. And those people that are coming up, Lieutenant General Henry Tumukunde, all those names that want to be appearing on the ballot paper, would you, after this program, call them and say, brothers and sisters, let's sit, forge our way forward. We need to have one candidate. Would you?
I have told you, if your formula or if your support does not equal 50+1, it will not work. And the issue of presidential, if you do have the numbers which will deny President Museveni the 50+1, it will force a rerun, which will have only 2 candidates in the rerun. And when you have only 2 candidates in the rerun, that is something where it is either or. But it's this deception which...
I'm worried you are not answering my question, Mr.
No, because you're not understanding where I'm coming from. If you don't have 50% of the presidential vote...
When do you get them? After entering the voting process. I'm talking about calling your leaders. You sit on a round table to see that you get one candidate.
The candidate... Now, if... Let me just say for mathematical purposes. If I could stand there and I say I control 10% of the presidential vote... Chagulanyi says he controls so much and whatever, and all those things added together come more than...
When do you determine this? At the election time? After elections? But I'm talking about on this day. You call these people, you sit.
No, even when you do opinion polls and the like, those things come up. If that number is not there, whatever permutations which you do is not going to change the outcome.
You can't call these people?
No, I interact with them.
But talking about uniting.
You see, you're pushing a formula which is not workable. And you're accusing me that I am not in favor of that formula, but I don't see if the formula is working. If the formula will work, yes, we'll look at it seriously. But there's no formula which I have heard which is workable.
So we are going in the polls. Mr. Jim Akena from the UPC, we're aware that even when you guys stand as opposition, Mr. Museveni is going to bounce back.
There's a high probability that that can happen. Go into this election, there's a high probability that Mr. Museveni can win.
Mr. Akena, who are you working for?
I'm working for UPC.
What does UPC stand for?
The people. When I say this one, it is not that I am giving a biased opinion. The opinion polls, the 35 years. Recently, we had the special interest group elections, which you even brought in your preamble. The returns on the special interest groups. Because of various factors, NRM is far ahead of all other players combined.
What kind of news is that to you?
No, now, your formula is, if you combine, if we had bigger numbers and you combine, that is when your formula is workable.
You believe in the opinion polls?
No, not necessarily, but...
because that's where you're benching and rooting your argument.
Opinion polls give you an idea. Whether you don't agree with it, there's something which you can garner from it. Right? There's some information which you can garner from it. It gives you an idea of where certain things are, where certain perspectives are. Whether you agree with the end outcome or the figures, there's something which can be got from it. So it is not a complete waste of thing that opinion poll, you ignore it totally. You can look into it and whatever. You gave me the example of the special interest groups. Right? Now, combine all of the special interest groups, whether you look at the youth, PWD or elderly. When you combine the opposition, I think we are less than 10%.
NRM got 79%, so
Yes.
the opposition got 21%.
No, there's independent there as well.
The independents, not opposition.
The
Okay.
independent was the biggest portion.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying, we're less than 10% as opposition. Now, whatever permutation you got of that, it is not going to exceed the 79%.
Do we really need to go into these polls when we know the winner eventually? Does it make sense?
And that
Okay,
is
now
why
you say we are going to the polls, but certainly chances are high Museveni is going to win. Do we really need to waste taxpayers' money, to waste our energies and resources, trying to flog a dead horse?
Now, in the general election, Museveni is not the only, or maybe in your case, the only thing in the general election is the presidency. Everything else is irrelevant.
Primary?
No, I mean representation. We need to be able to get quality people to represent the citizens at different levels. In parliament, you want a parliament which is going to be vibrant, which is going to be able to bring forward the issues which people are going through.
Under the stewardship of someone under his name who is bent on not nurturing and developing institutions, do you think the parliament can work? Are you proud of the parliament you are sitting in today?
No, but I am going to continue to try and advocate for the needs of my people and for what I feel will be best for the people. So I am, my message to all political players is that we must take the parliamentary election seriously. We must take the local government election seriously.
And the presidential, done deal?
No, my elder brother Kiza has thrown in the towel as of yesterday. I've been accused of not jumping into the ring. And it is a question of where is it best to focus your energies, right? I feel I can help galvanize the party at parliamentary, local government level to strengthen our
Who are you leaving the
position.
presidency for, Mr. Akena? Your father has been a president twice. Who are you leaving the presidency for?
Now, my father was a president twice in a political system which did not field presidents.
No,
In
in,
tho-
in
in the-
1980 there were polls.
There were polls, there were
Which of
parliamentary
course
polls,
UPC
there were
won with
parliamentary
questions.
polls, there were parliamentary polls.
Yes, that saw
We
him being
practiced
elected president.
parliamentary democracy. So it's the party with the most number of members of parliament which forms the government.
Yes.
So what I'm pointing out here is that he was not on the ballot paper as president.
But he was in office as president.
He was in office as president because UPC got the most parliamentary seats in the 1980 elections. I am still focused towards strengthening our base.
Now, who are you leaving
Both
the
at
presidency
parliament-
for? Who are you leaving the presidency for, Mr. Akena? Because you don't seem to have energies and minds and resources targeting the presidency, and you are not comfortable talking to your fellow leaders of opposition to unite under one person. Now, you are giving up on the presidency.
Bashir, you are pushing a formula which is not working. There was a lot of time spent, my predecessor, Olaro Tuno, spent a lot of time in his presidency
under the revolutionary leadership of His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni.
Democracy-seeking groups to come up with something. They did come up in the end with TDA. TDA had its
challenges.
A lot of its challenges. I didn't think TDA was the way to go. And surely, in the after the 2016 election, TDA disappeared. Completely disappeared. So, if you're looking for a formula, I'm being honest with you, I have not yet seen that formula. The best attempt which had been done was what I said Mao was trying to get this special purpose vehicle. But it did not take root. But again, the mathematics. In a presidential system which is 50+1, if these component parts do not reach 50%, believe me, what you're coming up with, maybe it is to seek to promote a particular candidate, but it's not going to solve the issue which you are raising, which you are trying to focus on, or the issue of saying that you want this election where your key element in the election is a change of leader. Then
we need to learn from you as a seasoned politician and someone that has been in State House twice, and maybe we shall be in position to answer or follow you. Why is it the situation happening this way? Is it because the opposition is weak, or because of the enormous strength, the insurmountable effort that is put up by the present government? Is it so strong that you cannot beat it, or you are too weak to even move a step ahead?
No, this is something that didn't happen overnight. The first 20 years, political parties could not operate. So political parties were in stagnation. They were basically locked up, while you had an organization which was functioning, and also functioning fused
within the state.
So with the limitations which you have and whatever the desires, it is now dependent upon us to build upon this, expand on the freedoms which we have achieved, consolidate the freedoms, strengthen the institutions which will support the democracy. It would be good if we could achieve it at one go, but through these last 3 elections, there have been gains and losses. We need to chart a realistic way forward of how we're going to continue to participate in the politics of Uganda, to remain relevant to our core constituency, which is the people, and be able to create an environment which will see Uganda continue and to prosper without a serious collapse due to the politics.
How many years does it need to see an opposition standing firm in your mind?
No, but there's no formula. There's no prescribed formula. There's no prescribed time. But it's the tasks which we have to achieve.
Because we just say that NRM was entrenched within the system, true? For 20 years, yes. Now, how many years would be enough for you guys as opposition to wake up and really stand firm to the challenges of that day?
You're dealing with particular issues. And as you deal with those issues, if
the prosperity for their country, Uganda,
they carry forward. There are issues which we've tried to discuss of institutionalizing the political parties. I was able, as chair of IPOD, to put forward that agenda, and we made some progress on that one, where one key element which has affected political entities is funding. There's to be increased funding to the political institutions. Hopefully that will be able to strengthen those entities to be able to play their positive role in strengthening the democracy.
Wow, yomukulu Jime James Akena mukwano gwange alina fe Quest TV tuchagenda maso ne program logo tulawaka face to face ne Jime James Akena omukulembeze w'ekibiina kya Uganda People's Congress tuyitiramu ku bimuko ebyo byetaagibwa bonga abodudo oluvuganya government okulabika no batwala obukulembeze n'ensonga endala nnyinyo tugenda kwatu omulamu and of course tudda n'omukulu Jime Akena abali ku social media mwe bali kubanga muli naffe tuli ku STV. It's happening right here. Webale kubanga okyali naffe Quest TV, it's happening. Zehad Kazibe Bashir Mbazida, webale kubanga otugoberera. Lwanyuma lwa kano akaseera tugenda kuba tukutuusako program eyitibwa Select Sports, ekintawuli ky'ebyemizannyo. Bannaffe bagenda kubanga bajja wano babeerenga bakutwala bakulage Bundesliga, Arsenal, Man U. Jim Akena has just told me that he's an ardent supporter of Manchester United. How are you performing these days as Man U?
Entering the Champions League.
You are?
Yes.
And unfortunately, I'm not a supporter of those Premier League clubs, in for Sports Club Vida and Uganda Cranes, of course.
Cranes, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
We must support it. How are you performing as Man U?
Man U beginning of the season was rough, but when coming out of Corona, they're able to pick up and back in the Champions League.
Okay.
And I think that touches on our politics, where we have all these political parties. There are some seasons where you know you cannot get the championship.
When you are really sure that you cannot get it?
Did you reach a certain point where you realize that you can't get it? So you now play for...
not to be relegated.
There's those who are playing not to be relegated. There are those who are playing for Champions League. Yes. There are those who are playing for, there are different things to be garnered. And that's the point which I was trying to make on the general election. There's the crown of being the champion.
That is the presidency.
Yes. But there are also other things which you must aim for. And overall, we need to raise the standard of politics. At the end of the day, when the standards of politics improves, the end result for the spectators, the fans, is also an improvement. So my focus in this election is looking at all of these other lower positions. Though you may concentrate very highly on the presidency, I am very happy when I have my LC3 Counselor on UPC ticket. Wherever in Uganda, where I have an LC3 Counselor, I'll celebrate that Counselor. One, standing on the party ticket. Two, being elected. And I'll mobilize around that issue. Because I am in the politics for the long haul. You may have a bad season, that doesn't mean the next season it can be better. But we are going to continue in the politics and going to continue playing a role in the development of Uganda.
Mr. Museveni seems to have painted this big picture in your mind, UPC and you as the leader, that is unbeatable, unchallengeable, unwinnable, unboggable in the polls, and you seem to be moving with it.
No, I have this situation, okay, like you asked, I currently have 7 members of parliament. I expect to increase substantially. But there are now, I think, is it 353 constituencies, plus 100 and, I think about 146 districts. That will make 500 and maybe 500 members of parliament,
yes.
To be able to govern effectively, you need at least half of that.
Something like 250?
Yes.
You're going to be in charge of the state.
Now that is where you'll be able to handle matters. Because when we get to Parliament 2021, the first order of business is elect a speaker. Speaker is elected by all members of Parliament. If you don't have the numbers, you'll run into difficulty. So if you expect to miraculously win the presidency, how are you going to deal with the governance? I mentioned that we have leaders in local government. There's one local government where we are the chair, but we are also the minority.
In the council?
In the council.
Yet the chairperson is yours?
The chairperson is UPC. But majority of the councillors are not UPC.
That's a challenge.
Now, that chair has to find ways of governing as a minority leader. Those are questions which all have to be addressed. And hence I raised you earlier that you need to look at it holistically. You need to look at the various positions. I raised to you that on the question of the age limit, we needed 1/3. We didn't have 1/3. And at that time, 1/3 was about 100 and almost 150. We didn't have it. So those are questions which, as political players, we need to address seriously. But when I look at addressing that issue, I'm being accused that no, I'm in somebody's pocket and whatever because of being maybe pragmatic or realistic on what is before me. So my message to all my members is whatever little, whether it is an LC3 Counselor or whatever position, let us go for it. You have my total support, I'll be with you. Post-election, we shall see how we're going to move ahead.
Cool. We are still having Mr. Jimmy James Akena, Party President, Uganda People's Congress. When you talk about UPC, actually you mentioned it a little bit passively at the start of the show. When we talk about UPC, Uganda People's Congress, April Milton Obote in Buganda here, people get mixed feelings about him and the party. It's that party that really presided over, or the president that presided over the attack on the palace 1966. And the circumstances that arose after that incident are really still evident, and the scars are still with the people of Buganda and Uganda at large. Did your father reach a time and regretted that move of attacking Mengo Palace, and that led to the eventual exiling of the Kabaka, where he died?
I think this issue was a little more complicated. There were two actors. It was not only one-sided. It definitely set the country in a
dark position.
You can say dark, but also in the period 66 to 71, that is the period where we had 24 hospitals. The greatest expansion in the health care.
It was after the attack on Lubidi.
It was between 66 and 71. And this was based on the second five-year development plan, 66 to 71. When you mention Amin and Amin's success, Amin inherited the third five-year development plan, which he implemented maybe about 35% of it. And those are things which you hear people praising and whatever. So on questions of key development of elements which were important to us as UPC, to provide health services, expanding the education system, strengthening the economy through the cooperatives, the period 66 to 71 showed massive success.
So you had to first get rid of the Kabaka to develop the country?
No, it is more complex than that one. And this is, I don't think in the final minutes of a program like this, we can adequately address it. I think all parties, all sides of the equations have learnt lessons around what you can or cannot do within the context of the politics of a country. And
in your view, because you shared a lot with your dad, what was the problem? Why did this happen? Because it should never happen again. But why did it happen?
It can happen again if all players have not learned. If all players have not learned. Now, one key element is also to understand from the perspective of each side. UPC had set out to build a nation. Wanted a question of Uganda. I think some of the elements around the kingdom wanted to preserve the special status which Buganda enjoyed under the colonial system. So it reached a point where there was a clash. Some people say it was inevitable, but this is not something which I'm going to dwell on because this happened even before I was born.
You were not here?
I was not on earth. I was not born. I was born in 67.
A year after this?
A year after. And even my cognitive issues began much later.
Yes.
So if something like that is going to define relations 50 years later, I don't think we're being honest with ourselves on what are the underpinning issues.
A year before he passed on, I managed to scoop an exclusive interview with the then Katikiro of Buganda, the late now Joash Mayanja Nkanji. I sat with him for close to 3 hours. And he told me this, I quote, he said that Obote had planned to attack the palace way back. He had planned to get rid of the Kabaka. And he quoted Obote, your dad. He said that Obote said, when he saw Kabaka Mutasa holding a Bible to swear in as the president, he knew that he was finished. Mu Luganda Katikkiro Mayanja Nkanjibwe namusinkana yangamba nti Obote yali ategese, yali amaze ebbanga ddene ng'apanga okusaanyawo Buganda n'okutuusa obulabe Kabaka era yakikola, nti Obote yagamba bwe nalaba Mutesa ng'alayira ne mmanya nti mumaliriza. When he saw Edward Mutesa swearing in as the president, your dad really knew that his target was confirmed.
No, but you see, how did Mutesa become the president? It's something which you
the
must
KY-UPC alliance?
Yes and no. The Mengo had a problem of going to independence. They had accepted the British government over the Kingdom of Buganda. Their concern was, you are now going to have a Uganda government above the Kabaka. That was a big question. So in the discussions which were had, that there can be a formula. So the formula which was worked out was, we will have a titular president, which will be the Kabaka. So that now made the Kabaka the head, titular head of government. Because even after independence, the Queen remained head of state of Uganda.
True.
Until 1963, when we amended the constitution, removed the Queen and put the position for titular president. Even in UPC, there were disagreements. Many UPCs were saying, no, why should we put Kabaka Mutesa as president? So there had to be discussions within UPC on that basis. But this was to cure the concern which had been raised from Mengo. So to now say that Obote knew that it was finished, but this is to accommodate the concerns of Mengo, I think here we're stretching the realities around it. There was a problem which was faced, a formula came up. The extent of the formula, it's difficult to know. In politics is fluid. You cannot tell me you know exactly what's going to happen in January.
Of course not.
Right? Now, this issue, coming up with that formula, was brought up before 1963. Because in 1963 was when the constitution was amended to allow for the position of president. Then the clash happens in 66. So it's like saying that people are scheming here now, and then now in 2030 is when the plan is going to be hatched. That level of scheming and whatever, it is not realistic.
Your dad was really smart.
He was smart, yes, but now you're attributing so much and trying to put ill motive on him. He tried to accommodate the situation. He tried to do his part. In accommodating that one, there were other challenges which developed along the way. And not all of those can be put on my dad.
Your dad, when he came back in 1980, I have audio recordings of him. Like I told you, I'm an ardent student of Milton Obote and Idi Amin Dada. Of all the leaders that have led Uganda, I really take a lot of interest in understanding their styles because they are unique in a way. One of the audio recordings that I have in my archive, Milton Obote, on coming back from exile, he talked about DP. There was one party that used to have green and something else. I'm quoting him. Then he reaches a point talking about Buganda. You people thought you are going to be powerful. There was this one, you are lying so much with this K-A-B-A-K. I even can't pronounce it. So he could not even pronounce the name Kabaka. That shows a deep-rooted negative feeling about him. I have the audio recordings. He could not pronounce the name Kabaka. K-A-B-A-K. Yes.
Now, when you're doing politics...
That must have been
when you're doing
really
politics...
Deep.
No, when you're doing politics, where's the depth from? Politics there's a bit of humor and that sort of thing where you are trying to make your point. Surely, if we take everybody's... what you say in your politics, then years later somebody is analyzing and say, Bashir had a hatred for this group of people. No. Now, where you say that hatred, okay, where it comes to the hospitals, the 24 hospitals, how many were in Buganda? 5.
You can tell me.
5. Would you put hospitals where you have hatred? The expansion of the schools, most of the schools were expanded were in Central.
Because it was his master plan to take over Uganda for eternity after getting rid of the Kabaka.
So if I am to take over by giving you quality health services, by giving you quality education, by expanding the cooperatives which gave people wealth, and then you say I hate you, surely.
It was really a challenge because his wife is a Muganda.
Yes.
Miria Carolina Chitobote, your mom.
Yes.
She's a Muganda of the clan,
Ngeye
clan, Oli Muzukulu wa Buganda.
Yes.
But the Muko turned the guns to his people.
No.
Omuko nakubo Buganda na Bumalawo.
My friend Lutamagusi pointed out in some of his rambling and whatever. Because one of those hospitals is in his constituency.
Nakaseke.
Yes, that was one of the 24 hospitals. He told me, and once they said, Kumba, I didn't realize that Muko actually loved us. Because up to tomorrow, that Nakaseke hospital, what is it doing?
Treating Ugandans.
Yes, well, the people of the area. There's the one in Kayunga. There's this one in Lugazi. There's Gomba. There's Kiboga. Those are all part of those 24 hospitals. And up to tomorrow, it is going to continue treating. It is going to continue giving. But some of us are fixated with a clash which happened, a political clash which happened. For whatever reason, they are trying to attribute ill motive. I can tell you, to be honest, my father on this issue of scheming negatively and issues of violence, history can prove he was an amateur.
He was not violent.
He was an amateur at it.
But he used that one opportunity as an amateur to do something, an abominable, something out of mind.
You're missing out. I don't want to go too much into this one, but you're missing out some of the events which happened before.
The lost counties.
The lost county issue. You know, people died in that issue before the referendum.
True.
And was it anything to do with the vote? And how did the lost counties end up? How did they end up being lost? This was something of colonialism. Because of the resistance which Kabalega put. And then the forces which were involved in suppressing Bunyoro. That some historical injustice was put. And the British, rather than solve that problem, left it to the newly independent Uganda government. And in trying to solve that one, definitely a rift was set up. Now that was not a creation of Milton Obote, because that even happened before he was born.
Wasn't that too much force that was unleashed onto the person of the Kabaka? 24th May 1966. An army, not just even got people from Tanzania. They came.
They were not people from Tanzania.
Planes came rolling over the palace, hovering up and above.
The events which happened. Now, if for me I was not born, I am sure you were not even there.
Exactly, yes. But the books and history, and you have people that witnessed all this.
You have, history is also written by those who had a vested interest. These are issues which, yes, we must discuss, we must talk about. But to come with a view that for some reason that UPC and Milton Obote wanted to suppress. I've given you examples of where our interest was. One thing, if you want to study the issue of leadership and whatever, look for the second 5-year development plan. If you don't have it, I can share a copy with you. This one gave a blueprint of what we intended to do as a party. And the advantage of that one is you can see where we succeeded, where we failed. So the issue of the hospitals, the expansion of the cooperatives or whatever, all of that was there. And that one was to strengthen the common man. And when I go around the country and I see these ones, I mean, many of these health center 4s and what used to be dispensaries and sub-dispensaries, many of which were expanded in that same period. So there was a massive strengthening of the health services. The total expansion came up to be about 80%. So imagine you're expanding health delivery to 80% across the country. No area was left out. The concentration obviously was around central because that's where there was a concentration of higher population densities, and a lot of the services were centered around there. Because of those services also you get the population. So those are things which were done. And given an opportunity, tomorrow we're going to do the same, if not more. But it's the issue of providing the proper health services, providing proper skills and education for people to be able to empower themselves, and also providing the means where somebody can earn a living. Those are the key elements of UPC.
Still,
and there we will never apologize for doing it, and we'll do it again.
Still, there was one powerful minister in your father's government, the late Abukacha Mamayanja. I remember he told me about how he took your dad at Bamunanika Palace. They went together, and your dad was putting on the traditional Ganda wear, a kanzu. Ayambale kanzu, he took him to Bamunanika Palace. And that was the starting point of the friendship, the loyalty, the brotherhood that saw us having the UPC-KY alliance. That was good at the start. I'm wondering if you could get a Kacha Mamayanja today and they took you to Lubiri to meet the Kabaka, to talk to him, ngo mwana wa Buganda, because witabasobola kwegana. Mama wo, mchala wangeye, but I've not seen you going to Mengo to meet the Kabaka or the Katikiro.
I've been.
I've not seen you.
I've been. Unless you want me to do it as a ritual.
Okay.
Every now and then you want me to do it.
You've gone there?
I have gone. I've met the Kabaka. I was also during one of these celebrations.
Okay.
I went, I was taken. I have been
You've talked to him?
Yes, I have been in the opening of the Luchiko.
Okay.
There's even a photo which came up where the current Katikiro, at that time was not the Katikiro.
Charles Peter Maiga.
Yes, was helping me having the council properly.
Okay.
There's a picture which came up, but I've been. It's part of my heritage. It's not something I can run away from. And whatever, I am part and parcel.
So you are enjoying a cordial relationship with Buganda?
It is part of me.
How is Mama?
Mama's okay. She's okay. Obviously, with her age, we have to be concerned with this corona.
Yes.
She's in that bracket of
the vulnerable people.
So she's around. She's at home, but we try
in Kololo.
In Kololo, yes.
Okay.
We try to restrict
contacts.
I
wanted an interview with her. Now you just said that you are restrictive.
No, we can try and use technology.
Zoom.
Maybe Zoom or something where we set it up on that side.
All right.
And then you'll be able to talk to her.
Thank you so much for finding time, Mr. Jimmy Akena, the party president of Uganda People's Congress, first son. Watch the way interview our president here, one time and you see you in State House.
We're getting there.
How was life in State House? As a first son, salute every now and then, people are coming, and as young boys were running up and down. How was it?
It's difficult to say because I was born there. But that first period,
67, then 71, stuff happens.
So the memories actually begin where things started going wrong. Then 81 to 85, much of the time I was at school, but school outside of Uganda.
Okay.
So 85, the coup happened when I was about 17. So I am more familiar with exile
than presidency.
I've spent 29 years as a refugee. So I understand the issue of refugee, I understand the issue of living outside of your own country, and it's not something I wish on anybody.
Good. I remember, but is it you that came back with dreadlocks?
Yes.
Rastafarian?
No, I was not a Rastafarian.
Yes.
In the Bible, there's a book of Numbers, which talks about a vow of a Nazarite. The most famous Nazarite in the Bible was Samson. Samson also had his long hair where his strength was. Now, I made a vow of a Nazarite when the 1995 Constitution came into place. Because I felt that the 1995 Constitution took away my fundamental right to belong to a political party, to participate in politics on a party of my choice. Something which the 67 Constitution of UPC never did. People will talk about it and whatever, but I can challenge anyone today, tomorrow, and
But
whenever.
he did abrogate it.
No, you're talking of 62.
Oh, yes. Then he came
And
back
then
with
67, word for word, on the Bill of Rights, chapter 3, is the same as 62. The Bill of Rights is word for word, which is the rights, the fundamental rights. Now, in the 1995 Constitution, Article 269 took away those rights. So when that Constitution came into force in 1995, I stopped cutting my hair.
In protest?
In protest, because on this key document, which should define Uganda, there was this thing which I found totally unpalatable. Now, effectively, that 269 was knocked out through court process in late 2004. It was knocked out in court, but then there's a referendum in July of 2005, and then eventually was removed. But that is the reason why I did not cut my hair. I was not a Rastafarian, because Rastafarian is somebody who believes in the Prince Tafari.
Yes.
Haile Selassie. I did not.
Yes. This was a
I am a
protest
Christian. I'm a Christian who believes in Jesus Christ. But when this thing came, I stopped cutting my hair.
Okay.
And after my father passed, because of our Nazarite, you're not supposed to come into contact with a dead body. I had to cut my hair. But also, the reason why I had grown my hair had also taken its course. I was able to cut my hair.
Thank you so much. The very last one. How many siblings are you, the Obotes? And where are these people?
I have 3 brothers.
Okay.
2 older, 1 younger.
Okay. Akaki, where is Akaki?
Akaki works in Sudan, no, in Somalia now, but he's around at the moment.
Okay. Is the older or young?
He's the eldest.
Okay.
Then there's Akena, who is in Nairobi.
Okay.
He's a preacher. And of course there's me, and there's a younger brother.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mukuru Jimmy James Akena, mutabani yali omukulembeze gwanga Uganda. Tubadde nakadde kawanvu nnyo okwogera ku byobufuzi ebiriwo tuteko mu byafaayo. That was really insightful. Tweyanziza. Thank you so much. Abantu abo basiibule ssebo. Bakojjabo bakulaba.
I wish you all the best.
Bakojjabo ssebo yogera mu Luganda. Ye Jimmy Akena tunasinkana mulundi oguddako akuume. Tudda mu byamizannyo Select Sports ekintabuli ky'ebyemizannyo.